Mi gente, you already know who it is. It's Danny Limelight. And I need all of you to subscribe to According to Woods podcast on Facebook, YouTube, and all other platforms.
What's good, party people? This is According to Woods, and I have the honor and privilege of talking to my friend. He's professional boxer, Garrity McOsker. What's going on, my man?
Pretty good, man. How are you? It's been a long
Good,
time.
good. Hopefully I didn't butcher the last name too bad.
Got it right? Yeah.
Fuck yeah.
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 Oscar, like Oscar Mayer Wiener or Oscar De La Hoya, whichever comes to mind first. Oscar with a make super easy.
Yeah, no, I love it. I love it, my man. But dude, I mean, thank you for joining us here. It's crazy times, weird times, and like we had a fight scene here in Southern California, and then there it goes. Just
right.
And we haven't had it for most of the year. So how's like everything been going for you?
Good. As far as training goes, I'm actually back finally to training. I guess for me, it's kind of always been an off and on affair as I've had, other pursuits in life and other interests that I've tried to manage them all at once. But boxing is something I love. So it's always great to be back. And I'm back in the gym at Jackrabbits Boxing Gym in Long Beach, which is close to home. I'm from San Pedro. But as far as how things have been during this whole weird year, I think, I've been relatively lucky. When this thing started, I was still working. Interest rates came down. I refinanced my house. I won in that regard. I really can't complain. There hasn't been anything that bad. I caught the Rona a little bit ago and didn't have bad effects, so I'm lucky there, and kept it inside me, didn't pass it on. So what else can you do?
Well, I mean, I'm glad that you're in well health. I mean, and able to return to the gym safely, and that's the thing is being able to do things safely, right? There's this like kind of shroud of whatever the heck, and it's something sight unseen, right? It's like it's not like we can go like, oh, that's coronavirus. I'm gonna no, like it's like you could be just like, I don't know, walking along or whatever, touch something, and boom, there it goes.
Right. It's one of those, and it's also weird because, like you said, it's sight unseen, and it's as we've heard it talked about earlier on in this era, the invisible enemy, but it's also kind of made us all act in a weird way, both on the cautious and protective in a good sense, and then in a weird way of just odd and sometimes overly zealous interactions with each other. So it's really shaping the world in a weird way. And I don't know.
I don't know. Yeah, it's just weird. It's just weird all the way around, and it sucks. People are suffering. People's finances are messed up. People's health. I've had a couple friends actually, unfortunately, pass away. So, like when I hear your story, I'm like, yay! My wife, she got it like 2 weeks ago. We got tested again. I've been testing negative. Our kids are tested negative. So hopefully, I make it like literally like a clean sweep and do like 3 straight negative tests and then 1 for her. So hopefully we're on bated breath.
This whole era has really given me a time to. I'm talking about not just like the last few weeks or the last month when I got it, but just this entire time of 8 months where there's closures and there's quarantines. You can get frustrated about it, but it's kind of given me a lot of opportunity to reflect, especially early on, and then comes back later on when I'm really on lockdown, because I realized that, like, first of all, there's all this empty time. Use it to do something good. So whether that be in the beginning was that running or reading more or thinking more or just praying more, or calling people. I can't tell you. I feel like calling people is back in fashion now, and it's like, well, I mean, I think everyone's burnt out on video. I mean, this is cool for a podcast, but I think people who do it at work are burnt out on video. But the week before Thanksgiving, I started calling people randomly, friends from college, friends who totally weren't expecting. They thought they got a bud dial, right? And I can't tell you, like, they were shocked and surprised, but also like, dude, this is like fun. Like, cause you get kind of excited when you're on the phone call. Like, I don't know about you. Do you pace around the house a little bit when you're talking to a friend or you know what I mean? Or a family member? But yeah, I guess what I was saying was that all this downtime during the pandemic has really given you an opportunity to take things slow and remember the good things. And gosh, can't think about how many opportunities I didn't take when they were there. And it's like, oh, okay, when things come around again, I got to take these opportunities. Don't miss that, whatever, that trip to say hi to somebody or whatever. So yeah.
No, 100%. In that time of reflection, that's crucial because when especially living in kind of the Los Angeles area, things just go by fast. The life of a fighter, fast, and like you're getting to the next training session, you're getting to the next show, your teammate might be fighting, something like that, and you just like, again, I'll answer that text, when I get home, or I'll kind of leave them on bated breath, and it's just like this time is a time for reflection. Like even me, like,
but Adam, you thrive on that. I think you and me and a lot of people like us who, I mean, we met at a show, right? We met at a CXF show, right? I think
yes, absolutely.
For the coverage, but like that sort of the busybodiness, the excitement that sort of, and I think you get that a lot in kind of the fight show world. So you take that away like in a vacuum for this amount of time, and it kind of feels like, I don't know. I wonder what you're thinking this whole time. Like, I mean, you've gotten a lot busier on these podcasts, right? So it gives you time to pursue that. But like earlier, what I was saying was I felt so fortunate that like while everyone else was like shut down, like I'm working in construction right now. They were keeping us busy, so it's like it was another opportunity to reflect and be thankful for that. But also like thankfully, I had something that I can keep my mind occupied, or can keep my body occupied, so my mind wouldn't spend all day in hesitant self-talk. So it just, I don't know. It's the same with same way a workout is, but when the times where gyms were closed, it was tough for people, and
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, theoretically speaking, after the last 4 years for me, going to shows, MMA, Muay Thai, pro wrestling, jiu-jitsu, whatever, and then, working those shows, doing interviews and everything. And I would see like Joe Rogan or like a wrestling related podcast. And I'm like, one of these days, I'm going to do something like that. And I actually was driving from like Glendale area all the way out to Orange County in Stanton, right, to do a weekly podcast. Actually, I mean, tonight's Tuesday. The Gym Crashers podcast would be, I mean, it's happening in probably about 20 minutes time, on the Free Admission Media YouTube and Facebook channel. So quick plug for them. But, I was going all that way, but I was just like, like the hours and it just got longer and longer. And I was just like, man, I'll never get to start it. So this quarantine, it was just like a jump start. Now, I didn't do anything the first half, right? I didn't do anything until July, theoretically, but not theoretically, no, like literally, like nothing till July. But I was on a couple of my friends' podcasts, and they were using this very service, and I was just like, you know what? Let me check it out. And I started inquiring about and how to use it, and I was only using my phone, right? So like, does it work on a phone and everything like that? And it did. And here we are, 200 plus episodes since July. Yeah.
Dang, that's amazing. I think I do remember when I first started seeing you do the lives, and it was kind of like live, and then you were doing lives with somebody joining you, and that was your podcast, right?
Yep.
And that was pretty cool. And I do remember that was a really interesting moment in time because we were like peak Instagram Live. Like that was the time where like every musician, whether they were like, you know, sold many albums or the guy from your down the street, every musician was doing a live show every single night, right? And I
Yeah,
think that's the birth of like the popular versus series for the rap battles, and like
yeah,
I was like, dang it, and I started trying to do what looked like a podcast because you were like essentially doing a live. Everyone was doing lives for different various acts, whatever it may be. But I started noticing yours was like, oh, this is like a podcast. What a convenient way of doing it. Just throw it up on live, and then there it is. I don't know if you were recording it back then to save for later, but
no,
now you
it
are.
was
So
it was exactly like that. And just to show you how, you were talking about like the peak of Instagram Live, like when I started doing the Instagram Live stuff, it was essentially like Instagram didn't even have a deal where you could save it to IGTV. So all of the ones that I did, they are literally like they went out to the ether and like,
it's like
I had like, yeah, like
yeah,
so it actually predated that. And thankfully those people are good friends and whatever. And I want to circle back to everybody that I did a podcast with during that time and do it over again via this, and have it like long lasting and what have you. But in due time, like I can't even remember who I interviewed, like at that time.
what I'm sure you'll notice that after doing this thing 200 times, your interview chops are going to be like, as far as the podcast element. I know you've been doing interviews from a live standpoint after fights for a long time, but the sort of ebb and flow of a podcast vibe, you'll be like even more ready to make that like the recordable one, even if you're revisiting those early ones. That's cool, man. That's really cool.
No, but it's stuff like this. It's reaching out to people, and I figure it's not just like everybody. Once Joe Rogan basically signed that $100 million deal, and kudos to Joe because somebody that puts 10 years into something, like
Yeah.
the fact that that's the payoff, that's awesome. But the thing about it is like interacting with people, right? And if you're going to interact with people and then friends and what have you might as well just have like people on and you can interact, which Colin Crandall from the MMA Power Hour says great work, Mr. Woods and Mr. McOsker. Shout out to the MMA Power Hour. You can catch that every Wednesday night on Fight TV at the MMA Power Hour. So go ahead and check them out and all of their social medias. And he says, Adam, Austin, freaking shirt. Where'd you get it? And this is actually a Vince McMahon t-shirt from WWE.com, WWEshop.com, quick plug. But this is, if you listen to any wrestling podcast that with people that are close to Vince McMahon, like he's like a fart joke. And he's like, oh, that's good shit, pal. So like it really got immortalized in that. So I was like, I gotta have that. Gotta have that.
That's cool. That's cool.
Yeah.
That's a good fart joke. Everyone knows. You'll never grow up.
Ada says, hey, so hey, what's going on, my man? And then nobody knows more about MMA Pro Wrestling Combined than me. Nah, you're too kind. You're too kind. You're amazing. You're amazing. Colin Crandall.
Adam, I don't know anything about pro wrestling, and it's having quite a renaissance right now, is it not?
I mean, it's weird. I think everything.
Sorry.
Okay.
No, I feel like I was a little kid, and it was big. And then there was an era. So I'm 28, 29 next week. So I'm of the era of I guess rock was new in my lifetime, right? So it was the coolest thing as a kid, and then it became so dorky and lame because we grew up, whatever. But now you're seeing the people, kids my age, who now have a little more spending power and are nostalgic about a lot of their hobbies or things from earlier on. They have no shame in bringing up those things. you're seeing a huge interest in wrestling again, and I'm kind of amazed by it because I never really caught it in the beginning. The first time, I just wasn't. It just flew over me. It wasn't one of the things I got interested in. It just wasn't on TV at the house or whatever. So I kind of missed it then, and I certainly don't understand it now because I'm seeing guys that are 30 getting all riled up to go to these things, and I was like, dude, you were silent about that, when we were young. These are my friends, you're silent about that for the whole middle gap. I remember you liking it as a kid, and now you love it again. So I don't know.
So for me, I look at it, right, and I look at pro wrestling as a combat sport. If not for Randy Savage and Bret Hart in 1987, I don't think I would be like even interested in anything combat sports, anything in a ring, and later a cage with a combat sport. I mean, MMA, right? So with that all being said, I think because obviously people have more time on their hands, like everything, people are into Star Wars again, people are into comics again, like whatever your thing was, like you have a time over the last 8 to 9 months to revisit whatever that is. But that paired with like things like the Undertaker retiring, he just retired like 2 weeks ago, or at the Survivor Series, or a week ago. So
I saw it on Twitter, but I wasn't sure if it was real or if it was one of like a stunt.
No, it is. It is absolutely real. Like he debuted at Survivor Series 1990, and 2020 makes it 30 years as the Undertaker. So he called it a day, literally 30 years at the same pay-per-view that he made his debut. So that was that was pretty much the deal. So I think that is kind of a semblance of nostalgia, where like people are going back to maybe old Undertaker matches, or like if the Netflix and chill is not working, I'm gonna pay $10 for WWE Network, and then find out like it's a whole like rabbit hole that like literally everything that was WWE, since like from
now we have access to go down these nostalgic rabbit holes more so than ever before. So I guess it's happening not only in wrestling but everywhere else too. So, but yeah, I just think kind of an explosion for your a renaissance is not. I mean, whatever for your. I know that's your niche of professional wrestling. That's pretty cool.
No, absolutely. And Brian,
I know I got into boxing.
Pardon?
You were saying that you got into wrestling because of the Undertaker. It kind of reminds me a little bit about how I first got into boxing. Do you remember the book fair as a kid?
Yeah.
Elastic Book Fair. So
yes.
So I think like at the age, I was probably 3rd grade. At that time, we would get like a little bit of money, like maybe we could get like one book, right? And everyone was like going to like the Barry Bonds poster and like Mark McGuire, because we weren't really interested in like Harry Potter. We were just looking for whatever sport book was out, at the time.
Yeah.
But the book, it was like one of those like my first chapter book type series. I like that. Whatever that company was that used to make out those really addicting to look at picture encyclopedias as a kid, if you remember those.
Yeah.
I can't remember, but one of those book publishing companies that just prints out.
Just turns them out. Yeah.
Over again for a different topic. And there was this one. It was a Muhammad Ali book. Like it was a biography for a 3rd grade reading level, right? So I got that book and I read it a million times, and I was so obsessed with boxing. Like boxing seems like the coolest thing in the world. Like these guys go in there and they fight each other. These guys are badasses. Like this is the coolest thing in the world. And other than that, I had no exposure to boxing, other than this like freaking book. And then at my grandpa's house, probably a little bit later than that, he had the HBO, so we'd flip through and we'd land on boxing. I found out he liked boxing because he was from an era that had a lot of respect for boxing, even if you weren't like a fight nut, like you still liked boxing. So that just became our thing. We'd watch boxing all the time together. And then eventually a gym opened up in San Pedro, and I tried to convince my mom to let me join. And I was in like 6th grade, I think, when I finally got to join. She was like totally against it, like doesn't want violence, doesn't want me to get hurt, which was smart because I did get plenty of beatings. But then I finally convinced her that it would help with my behavior problems at school and my anger management, and she was sold. So I was a salesman from the beginning, and that was it. That's all it took. And then she took me, and then my grandpa took me to practice most of the time and all that.
Well, I mean that's cool because that leads into like how did you get, what were your first impressions of boxing, right? So I mean and I love asking that question, right? Like how did you get involved? Because everybody's situation is different, right? Some people like they want to do it because of fitness and they didn't even have like a TV growing up to watch boxing or wrestling or whatever the case may be, MMA, whatever, right? But they just got it for fitness, and the best fitness was, combat sports. And then they just like the coach comes up to them and they're like, "You want to fight?" And like that's it. Or some people that are like like hardcore historians and what have you, like they get into it because they're chasing, one of their idols, right, as a kid and everything like that. They're trying to chase like a Julio Cesar Chavez Sr. or Thomas the Hitman Hearns, or, like that stuff. Right?
Part of it was like I was always the shortest kid and the smallest kid and the least athletic kid for every other team sport, so I was gonna get benched. And I was like, in boxing, you can't bench me. I'm gonna be like, if you find me a bout, I'm gonna be in there. So that's why, whatever that I think that's why I kind of, and win, lose or draw, you got a lot of attention for it. So like, people thought you were cool, even if you got your ass kicked, which happened to me a ton as a kid. As an amateur, I want to be upfront. Like I don't sugarcoat anything. You hosted me. You asked me to come on the podcast. I was like, "Are you sure?" I mean, I haven't fought in forever. Like I'm not interested to be on the podcast.
Beg to differ.
Let me say, as an amateur, I was 5-8, and as a pro, I'm 1-1, and I haven't fought in 5 years. And I prefaced this earlier in the show with, I'm a guy who just has a lot of interests, and boxing is one of those interests. And like, I love boxing, but I'm fortunate. I'm fortunate in so many ways that it wasn't the only thing that I'm supposed to be pursuing as far as just looking at the opportunity cost of what's in front of me and what I should be doing. But I mean, that's a blessing, but it's also a curse because it's painful at times. Of like think about like I've missed out so much time of training because I was pursuing this other endeavor, and in that other endeavor, like I've kind of missed out on time for training or years. But with all that said, it's just like I don't know. I just I guess where I was coming from originally was so boxing is that sport that people find a home for, and for me it was a coach is not going to bench me because I'm the only one in there, and that's something I love about it. I mean, there's something that I don't know. There's only so much you can control, but in boxing, I feel like you have, at least for good or for bad, you have a lot of weight on your shoulders, and that feels good. When there's a lot of things out there that you have zero control over in life, boxing you have a little bit more control. You know what I mean? Because the units, the sort of elements involved are a lot smaller. I don't know.
Which I mean, and I know it's kind of a crazy thing to think about, right? But I mean, you mentioned that obviously you're going to, be, you're 29 now, right?
Yeah, like a couple of days. Yeah.
Yeah. So, Colin wants to know, question for Garrity. Do you have any goals that you want to achieve by age 30? Or have you already achieved some goals since it's, a week away?
I've achieved a lot of my goals. One of the goals as a kid I had was to go to the University of Notre Dame, my dream school. I went there, played rugby. We actually had after I did real amateur boxing with USA Boxing, we had a a boxing club there with an awesome tournament that raises a lot of money for the missions in Bangladesh. So Notre Dame, the Holy Order that founded the university is the Holy Cross Fathers, and they founded a lot of schools in Bangladesh. And for like 90 years now, I believe, this tournament has been raising money so we raised the money for their entire budget. So what I was going to say was I got an opportunity to do that for the 4 years there, and that was amazing. And then I came back without a job, and was my first goal was I'm gonna get a pro fight. I don't know what it's gonna take. So what I ended up doing was I actually I snuck into a top rank media day, just kind of went. And the great thing about boxing media days is that if you have a camcorder and you just wear a button down and you just walk in the right direction, you look there, you look like you belong there, you're gonna belong there, right? You're gonna get in. So so I snuck into this thing, and then I tracked down Carl Moretti from Top Rank and just gave him my elevator pitch. An elevator pitch. It's funny because I do remember in college I was in a business class, and one of the exercises they had us do was make your elevator pitch. If you're by a client or by an opportunity, what would you say in these 11 seconds? And I didn't think that I thought it was kind of a silly exercise at the time, but I didn't think of how quickly I got the opportunity to do an elevator pitch. And he was like, "All right, kid, I get it." So I gave him the whole story. I did my homework on this guy, so I know that he's a Notre Dame fan. His Twitter, he's a Notre Dame fan. He's VP of boxing operations. He was good to me when I talked to him. He nice guy, gave me a shot. He said, "Yeah, kid, I'll put you on a show. Just follow up with me." So I followed up with him. I think I went home, taught myself how to use Premiere Pro, Adobe Premiere Pro, how to do the video editing, which is funny because I had a class on that subject, and I didn't learn jack during that semester. But when I came to teaching myself in 48 hours, I taught myself pretty good how to use Premiere Pro, and took any footage I had, which wasn't much. It was clips of sparring, clips of smokers. That's not true. Actually, I had some clips of the Notre Dame tournament mostly, and then just photos and stuff. And I put that together. I don't even know if it mattered, but I put together a little portfolio to give him, put it on a flash drive, and then I went to because the media event was for the let me remember this. It was Timothy Bradley and
Pacquiao?
Jesse Vargas.
Okay.
Yeah, Jesse Vargas, Timothy Bradley at the StubHub Center. StubHub. And so just chased him down and gave him the thing. He said, "Yeah, I'll put you on a show. Put you on a show when we're back in Southern California at a one of these ballroom shows." And then he followed through on that, and it was cool. I feel that's, I don't know. It's my story of how I got a shot to get a debut. And then the work really started at that point. Obviously, I was training at a level that I had an insane level that I hadn't yet ever experienced. I was with Danny Zamora at the time, and he really guided me and got me ready for helping this kid accomplish one of his dreams. And not to say that I fully accomplished my dream, but a major step there. And I had one fight after that. I lost that fight, and I wouldn't say it's all roses for a kid who had a dream of being a professional boxer, but gave it my all and just enjoyed every moment of it. So I still want to fight all the time, but go ahead.
And that's a hell of an opportunity, Top Rank, right? And especially, as we kind of began the show of how crazy this year has been. Well, there's only been a couple of combat sports anything happening here in California, and before the Roy Jones Jr. Mike Tyson fight, it was just 3 promotions: Golden
Right.
Boy, Top Rank, and what is it? Premier Championship Boxing,
Yeah.
PBC. Yeah.
Champions, yeah.
Those are the only shows that had happened all of this year here in California, right? So, there's something to it that you
They're
were
one
able
they're
to.
one of the biggest ones. It doesn't necessarily say anything up to like my resume that I got a shot with them. It says more about my chutzpah that I went up and just bugged the hell out of the guy to let me do it, But yeah, I think that was a really cool experience. That was fought on the same card as I want to say his name. I'm trying to remember his name. He recently retired actually, but Alexander. He was fighting with the same. He was managed by the same guy that manages Loma and Usyk. And I don't remember his name at this moment, but I was on the same card as him, and who else was on that card? Not coming to my mind right now, but a couple cool, top ranked guys to be in the same, to be in the red corner locker room with those guys. It's a cool experience, and I won't forget it.
Let's see.
Oh, you want to look it up? All right. Just like
Yeah.
Rogan, I guess we could look stuff up. We're not.
That was.
Now GVOZDYK. I don't remember, but he had a fight against. If I remember, the height of his career was a fight. I'm gonna pull up his box record now. Yeah, I just don't remember how to pronounce his name. But yeah, he knocked out Adonis Stevenson pretty bad. That was the highlight, I think. Kind of near the end before he retired. But yeah, I was just throwing out someone I remembered from being in that locker room. But yeah, that was a cool experience. And then got a fight after that. Fought a left-hander. Kind of stupid to take that fight or to I don't know, find myself in that situation, but it's water under the bridge now. And I got knocked out in that fight, actually. Clash of heads, didn't see anything. The next punch, did the right thing, did the smart thing. He stepped out to, it was this side, I think. You'll see it's fatter. Stepped around outside and threw a hook from a shot I didn't see. That kind of fucked me up for a while, to be honest with you, mentally. Threw me into a long bout of depression. Not to say that that's completely gone, the depression in general, but that's really fucked me up. And but I wouldn't trade it for the world. Those experiences, the good and the bad, are all part of being alive. So.
And it sounds corny, right? Like that Whitney Houston song, "One Moment in Time," right? Like you're almost dancing with destiny, right? But that's what those things are, right? Where you don't want to go and think like what would be the. Sorry, my dog just went like ape shit. But you don't want to go and think, like. What if, right? What if I didn't ask that question? What if I had never gotten on that card? What if I never stepped into the ring, right? I mean, there's, it's like, what if? And I mean, it's crazy because Colin Crandall says, what does Garrity think about Jake or Logan Paul as boxers, right? And so, I mean, if theoretically speaking, right, Nate Robinson, right? That was like the talk of the town. I shared a shit ton of memes relating to his knockouts, right? Now, obviously, I've never fought. Yes, but see, there's two sides to it, right? Where, like, obviously, you could go like, hey, he's going for his dreams. He was already, a premier. I mean, he made it to the NBA, right? Of all of the people that play basketball. like there's only a handful of people. Yeah, there might be 1,000 jobs in the NBA, right? But like there's out of millions of kids that grow up playing basketball or want to play basketball or even go to high school, college, and whatever, they don't make it to the NBA. Here's Nate Robinson, former NBA player, getting into boxing, right? But the reason why I went pretty hard in the paint with him is like he made himself, and like confidence is good, right? Like confidence is awesome, right? But he made himself like the patron saint of basketball, like God's gift to boxing. Yeah, one of the memes was like, I'm gonna show. Like I think he tweeted like Steph Curry, like I'm gonna show the world, fam. Like, and he went on and talking crap, and yes, and I can't tell which, Paul, Logan or Jake Paul, I can't tell the difference, but whoever fought him, right? That person was still a 1-0 fighter, right?
Right.
Yes, it was Logan, right?
It was,
or was
Jake.
It was Jake.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So yeah, Jake Paul. I mean, even still, they've been getting like crazy training, right? For the way that
it didn't work for sure.
Yeah. So for the way that Nate showed up to that fight, I mean, it wasn't like he was taking it seriously, right? And him basically coming in to a world, right? I mean, he as an athlete should know, right? That's just like somebody playing him one-on-one and saying, hey, we're going to do this thing on pay-per-view and I'm going to ball you out. And like Nate Robinson essentially scores, 100 points on whoever called him out. That's essentially what Nate Robinson did to the sport of boxing, right? So
yeah,
that's
I didn't know anything about Nate Robinson before this. I don't remember his career. I know he was dunk contest winner, but I don't remember his career. And I just knew that, okay, this pro athlete, so he has athletic talent. Also, was not following how much these two guys. Let's be honest, I was not interested in this fight. This wasn't the draw for me. But then hearing afterwards, a lot of places were saying that he didn't train very much and like he kind of picked it up more recently. I didn't know that at all. I assumed he had been training, almost as long as Jake, and Jake hasn't been training that long, but he's been putting in work for a couple years now. So I mean, that's something. And I guess 2 years of boxing experience is a hell of a lot more than a couple months, right? I don't know how long Jake Nate was training for, but that was what kind of the theme after on Twitter and Instagram. Everyone saying it was a couple of weeks of training, which would shock me. But if that's true, then I think he took it too lightly. If that's true, but I don't know.
Right, and that's essentially why I went hard in the paint. I was unrelenting as somebody that's a professional athlete himself, right? He should know better, right? Not to come into another sport, right? That's just like, challenging Usain Bolt into a foot race. Like it's a different type of athlete, right? And if you're going to step in, you should show respect, because not only are you stepping in the house built by others, but I mean, you're basically, leaving a legacy for, the fighters of tomorrow, right? And let's say if even like an even more established player, right? Let's say, I don't know, let's just be wild, right? Let's say like LeBron James. LeBron James said, "Screw the basketball, I want to do boxing or whatever," right? And well, it didn't work out so well for Nate Robinson, so it kind of sullies the water for anybody else coming in, right? And especially in 2020, where the I guess revenue for a professional athlete, because there are no live sports, all right, and let alone like just people, right? Like you're asking people for $50, right? As a pay-per-view to see you fight, and you're the co-main event. You should know. Don't come with bullshit. And that to me is what Nate just shat in the face of boxing in comparable training. Like I know people that were getting rounds with both of the Paul brothers since that KSI fight and everything like that. Both of them, Both of the Paul brothers were, were fighting. Now, gladly, they only got like 600 apiece, right? So, what a normal, debuter or 1-0,
Yeah.
would get, right? But theoretically, even
But
still,
what is kind of jacked up. I will say it was a little. Well, I'm not gonna shed a tear for them because that is normal for boxing to make that
right,
$800 in your first fight. But I think in Southern California it's like 800 for 4 rounds. Like that's kind of standard. They were gonna do 6 for 6 rounds. Also, why the hell do they think that they're gonna put two debuters or one number two fighter and a debuter in a 6 rounder? Like just because they're famous, is it gonna be like they're leaps and bounds above every other guy making his debut? Like it's a little bit. I don't know. That is
look,
but
no. No, I definitely see your point, and the thing about it is, um, that speaks to me, right? That you could, like, think of all of the boxers, right, that are training, not guys and girls that guys and girls that you don't know, right? That have amazing records that could have gotten a hell of a shine from being a co-main event, or at least, a part of that card, if not the co-main event, right?
yeah.
And you basically took it away. To
I
me,
mean,
Nate Robinson took it away.
yeah, it's theatrics. It's it's as old as boxing itself. The principle that your value is determined by how many people you can bring in, how many eyeballs you can get. So we're in a completely different world because he only has to get a certain percentage of his followers on all of his different platforms to buy in, and he's already kicking the butt of some of the bottom line, like on the pay-per-view counts. He's already outpacing some of the best guys in our sport. So quality's going to go down, but there's market forces at play when he can
Right.
put numbers in, and that bums me out because I love boxing and kind of a boxing purist in a sense, and I shake my head at these things, but I understand what happens.
Yeah, no, 100%. And to me, it's indicative of boxing failing to create stars, right?
What I'll say, Adam, they'll continue to put another Nate Robinson in front of him over and over and over again. And the thing about it has to be a Nate Robinson because it has to be a famous guy who looks and feels athletic, feel like he should be athletic, that is just lacking the boxing skills because there's a payday or whatever, and there's fame involved, and he's just ready to do it, and he thinks he's gonna whoop that YouTuber, which is a fair feeling to have if you're a professional star in your own right. But the great equalizer comes with an overhand right hand punch. But what I was going to say was it's going to take a long string of Nate Robinsons again to build Jake's career if he's going to have a career, because if you just pick a kid from Maywood Boxing Gym at his weight that has no name, first of all, no name, no draw, and no chance for Jake Paul. So it's just like you're gonna, you know what I mean? So that thing that disappointed you is actually part of the recipe. You're gonna need to bring in another unprepared big name like a Nate Robinson for his career to continue. So we'll see if they keep stringing together. Maybe they will. Maybe maybe other opportunities will come his way. But he sounds like he wants to keep doing it, and they made plenty of money on his draw. So they'll probably find more guys for him to fight.
Well, Luke Thomas of he's an MMA guy. He was basically saying that both the Paul brothers, if they wanted to keep this up and keep it going, they could absolutely do it for years, right? Like essentially, there is a celebrity championship boxing.
You just got to keep feeding fodder to the cannon. You know what I mean? You just got to keep bringing in more and more. There's a certain point where they won't be able to find guys for you. And this isn't just a diss on these two YouTubers. I'm talking about in general. There's a certain point where you have to step up to the next level. But would these guys be able to? I mean, it's we're talking about different kind of different
Yeah,
galaxies, you know.
but as you were saying that, right? So I mean, Nate Robinson has a respectable. I mean, way more. I mean, he's got 2.6 million followers, right? But I mean, Jake Paul on Instagram has almost 14 million followers, right? So again, if you're Nate Robinson, right, you're coming in, right, the least no name in the card. You're co-main eventing, right? You're a professional athlete where again you under like Nate Robinson knows who Mike Tyson is, right? If he doesn't know who Roy Jones Jr. is, shame on him, but he knows who Mike Tyson is,
Right.
right? And you're playing second fiddle to Mike Tyson's return fight, his first fight in damn near 20 years, right? And you come with that bullshit. That's why you got memed. That's why I have no like. I respect everybody he steps into the ring or the cage and whatever, but that's why I went so hard on the paint because to me he disrespected. He thought it might be a quick payday or he might be able to cash in on it. He might have thought that they were just going to do patty cake and everything like that, and he got found out.
I think the most important thing about what you said is that you respect anyone who gets in the ring because although those memes are all funny, and I have my sort of my maybe smug sort of thoughts on that entire show. When I say the entire show, that matchup, both those guys, I still have respect for Nate Robinson. He's got in there. He didn't realize what he was getting into because he didn't think it was going to be as hard, perhaps. But a lot of guys are, talking a lot of shit who have never stepped in a ring. So at least, you know what I mean? At least I have respect for that, as I do for anyone. Even the bum you see in a TJ fight who gets in there because he needs the the $600. Well, actually, it's less. I'm sure it's less than that, but he needs that money. Like people love to piss on bums in this sport and be really disrespectful. But like I have respect for even the bums. You know what I mean? Even the it's hard, and what's sad about this sport is oftentimes those are the only ones making the money are those B-siders. So, the A-siders got to, it's a little bit of a pay-to-play scenario. But, I don't know. It's like boxing has all these little analogies to economics and like socioeconomical injustices, but also just straight up like an Adam Smith book is is that wait, did I get that right? The guy who wrote Wealth of Nations? Yeah, Adam Smith.
Maybe.
But yeah. I didn't know if I accidentally said Adam because your name's Adam, but what I was saying was if you want to take a few looks at like what I was saying when I was talking about how market forces are at play when it comes to who can bring a bigger draw. Like when you break it down, it's simply an explanation of how we respond economically in other scenarios as well, and you see it all play out in the boxing business and in the ring, and it's kind of incredible. But I think I got on a tangent there, but
tangents are good. This is podcasts. That's what we go. That's what we do. We get into tangents here, which and Flavio says, tell him to cut the mullet. Apparently Flavio is not a fan of the mullet. Where does the mullet come from, good sir?
The mullet. You know how back the mullet is, by the way?
Is it, business in the front and party in the back? Yeah. That's the ethos, right?
I'm unfortunately, my ratio is a little messed up. I feel like I have a little bit too much business, and I need to get the ratio better. But we've been going strong for almost 3 years now with the mullet in various forms. Flavio wanted to shout out bad because I know our friend. Well, I don't know him as well, but Nate was on his show.
Nate Ryan.
Nate was on it last time, I think.
Yeah.
And so I know Flavio real well from the gym. I was at for a good while. I was at Capetillo's, and yeah, Flavio's a good dude, funny guy. So he wanted a shout out of some sort, but
There you go.
I forgot what he wanted me to say, but yeah, all positive stuff from a man. I don't know, I can't remember what he wanted me to say, but yeah, hey Flavio, thanks for checking into the show, dude.
Yeah, well, why not? Flavio's awesome. Flavio's great, and Flavio, since you are a boxer yourself, hey, I invite you to come on the According to Wood podcast. Slide into those DMs, man. I'm not hard to find.
Flavio was on my podcast actually maybe a year ago. So what was funny was I forgot to bring this up, Adam. You were talking about how the pandemic has given your podcast this awesome explosion of a genesis. Well, it did the exact opposite of mine. We had a different style because we had to do in person. We had a whole camera set up, and that's actually not true. I kind of got too busy before that, but it's awesome to see that you're finding the opportunity to do this even more. But yeah, we had Flavio on our show, like I don't know, early on. I think he was one of the first guys we interviewed. Probably the first actual interview we had. Me and my trainer at the time. Well, my trainer anytime I show back up, but when I say at the time, it's because I'm not always at the gym. But Trevor Zambrano from Jackrabbits Boxing Gym did his podcast, and Flavio was a fan favorite. Let's say that, and he will be when he's here. You gotta get him on.
Yeah, dude. So Flavio, you know what to do. It's According to Woods, literally on everything. So slide into those DMs, good sir. You'll be handsomely rewarded with the spot on this very show. So how about that? All right, there goes a cheap plug.
He's not. That's why he hasn't said anything yet. He would have peeped up, and said something.
Yeah, which I mean, Colin Grendel asks, what did Garrity think of Tyson versus Jones? Because we talked a lot about Knight and the obviously Nate and one of the Paul brothers, but in terms of the actual headlining fight, what do you think?
I thought it was fun. It was kind of what you expected it to be, and it lived up to what it was supposed to be, right? But I did kind of think that Roy Jones would have a little bit more slick, and a little bit more.
Me too.
There's no way one could be. Oh, I'm disappointed. This 52-year-old man just came out of retirement. Not necessarily retirement, but he just came out for an exhibition match. I'm expecting him. No, you're not supposed to expect too much because that's like unfair standard. But I did think he was going to have, a little bit more just because he's been in the ring more recently. But he looked like Roy Jones, though. There was moments, with the way he was, the way he would put his hand out, after holding that jab and then spin his body out. And it was very Roy Jones. It was very Roy Jones, style. And that was cool to see, The whole thing was a fun show, whatever,
It was absolutely fun. I just, especially when we're talking about pre this, right? Even before the talk of this fight actually happening, right? When you're like, oh, Tyson's gonna come back, right? When he had that footage of him hitting hitting Pacquiao Cordero, right? The trainer Anderson Silva and so many great, Brazilian, MMA champions, right? And he's saying I'm coming, whoa, and you're thinking obviously at the top of the list there's Evander Holyfield, but you might even go through the crop of whether it be Wilder, Fury. We didn't know it was going to be an exhibition match.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Yeah.
Right. So if we're oh, Tyson's back, think about the casual people that were literally comparing Jake Paul to Muhammad Ali. Think about those folks, right?
Yeah.
So, and there were quite plenty, right? So think about those people, right? So oh, Tyson's a heavyweight. who's that heavyweight? Well, I heard of that Tyson Fury guy. I heard of this guy across the pond, Anthony Joshua. Heck, even Andy Ruiz. Like, or what about the guy who basically claimed that his Triple H type garb, was the reason why he lost, right? Like,
Yeah.
think about the casuals, right? So, like,
Yeah,
oh, well,
Wilder's kind of losing his mind, isn't he? He remembers he blaming the costume being too heavy.
yeah,
He's going all in the last few, months, weeks. He's been like straight up. He fired his coach, blamed his coach. The costume being too heavy. He said way back close after the fight happened, but what's his coach name? Breland, I think.
yeah.
He recently fired him, and it was talking about how he thinks he tainted the water, and it's just kind of like he's losing his mind. He's up, I don't know.
Man,
I don't know what's going on, but it's kind of been unraveling a little bit.
that tainted water theory, man, that's like some Beauty and the Beast. That's tale as old as time in terms of boxing, right? Tainted water, like that was a theory back in like 70, like, and it kind of creeps up every time, right? So, but again, Deontay Wilder. I mean, it's crazy. Like my high school friend from Inglewood High, actually was the rapper that actually walked Wilder out, to that,
really?
right?
That's
yeah,
cool.
Absolutely. So I mean,
he was from your class.
yeah, he was.
Oh, really?
So and so it's kind of weird, right? Like, for me, graduating Inglewood High School, the year that I did, 2003 is when I graduated, right? So the two biggest like people that came out of my class. Now, obviously, there have been like nurses and doctors and everything, and that's awesome. But like in terms of like when you like say a name and like people like at the very least have it on a shirt, right?
Yeah.
So it would be Daniel Ferris or D Smoke, right? And before that, it was Lawrence Jackson, who went on. He was a football player at Inglewood High, set all types of records there. Then went to SC, played at USC, set a whole bunch of records there. Played under Pete Carroll, and then when Pete Carroll, went to Seattle, well, when Lawrence Jackson got drafted, he basically went ahead and played for his college coach in the NFL, right? So like there's people that have Lawrence Jackson jerseys, right? So for me, those are the two, right? D Smoke and Lawrence Jackson. Like in terms of like what I can accomplish, those are my measuring sticks, right? Like if I don't get to at least their level, I'm not to say like I'm not shit, but like those are the barometers, right? Like those are the shoes that I have to fill, right? So,
yeah, I think you're saying it with a smile on your face, but if I'm just starting to think about comparing myself, like when you compare yourself to others, like, I mean, I used to do that. I just think that gets you nowhere. You know what I mean? Just comparing, like, I don't know, like, especially being, this depressed, self-hating, mediocre boxer who's comparing himself to all these other boxers like Flavio, who are just kicking ass and getting PBC cards, on PBC shows on Fox or whatever. It's just like sometimes you're not going to get to the next step when you're just comparing yourself to these other people who are on a different, on a different level because they started at a different time or whatever. You know what I mean? But
no, absolutely. For me, it works, right? Because like
good.
when I was a factor,
what I said.
Like, I mean, honestly, like to me, I'm all like Rogan is the guy, right?
Yeah.
Rogan is that guy. So like for me, that's the barometer, right? And but I also know, right? So Rogan, or when he started his podcast, he was already a comedian. He was already on like news radio. He had already done Fear Factor, right? And so people knew, and he was a UFC commentator, right? So he had like 4 different ways where people knew him, right? So I don't have that. But what I think about it is like, well, I definitely the technology, right? Like this right here, what we're doing. If Rogan had this in '07, like it would even be larger than what his podcast is, right? So for me, I just like it puts it into perspective. Like if I'm going to put 10 years into this, right? I'm probably going to have to work 8 times as hard, right? Because again, he has 4 reasons why people know him when he started his podcast, right? So theoretically speaking, I I have to do 200 plus podcasts in 4 months and whatever. I have to work 8 times as hard because I don't have that name, right? So, but again, if I can even get a quarter of $100 million, a quarter of $100 million, I'm good with that. I'm totally good, right? So, but the thing about it is, it's like I believe in shooting for the stars, even if you land short. Oh wait, shooting for the moon, even if you land short, you land among the stars, right? So that is my deal. Like I'm gonna make my dreams. Like you can't limit dreams, right? So, like hell, if a title fight gets put right in front of you, right tomorrow, you mean to tell me you're not gonna take it?
I'm quitting my job for sure. And putting a camp in, right?
Yeah, you had 6 to 8 weeks, like a perfect scenario, right? You had 6, 8, 12 weeks, right? And the marketing materials and whatever had already whatever, but they have to scrap that, right? And you're the guy that they call, right? Flavio, Nate Red was in whatever promoter's ear and said, "Yo, Garrity McOsker, that's the guy. You'll have a hell of a fight, right?" So, and you get the call. You're not going to take it?
Of course.
Right.
Of course. Yeah. I mean, that's for better or for worse. That's how we all are, Boxers.
Yeah.
Gets in trouble, but it is. It's part of the disease, right?
It is part of the disease, man. But the thing about it, and especially covering combat sports, is the fact that like because those scenarios exist, right? Because of those scenarios, like I mean, we had it in MMA where it was TJ Dillashaw against Renan Barao. Renan Barao came in way overweight, right? So Joe Soto, who was like on the undercard that had made weight and everything like that, he gets plucked from the undercard. Like his fight was not even his fight was not even going to be a televised fight. He was on like the non-televised undercard, right? Yeah. And on like literally 3 hours notice, he gets a shot at the champ at a main event.
That's one of the coolest things about the combat sports, like these things like that happen, and sometimes you see, guy who just got off his construction job pull off an upset and then change the trajectory of his career, and it happens a couple times every generation. It's pretty cool to see, and that's part of the mystique of the sport that everyone's bought into. Is pretty awesome.
It's like the lottery of your body. That's literally it. It's like a lottery of your body. That's essentially it.
Yeah. With more elements you can control, though, because you're putting in all that training. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, and that's the other thing.
When you say lottery of the body, I think of having been born with LeBron James genetics or been born with Garrity McOsker genetics. Like that seems like a lottery. But this is better when you say like this your theory of lottery of the body or your the tag. It's a little bit like more. You control more inputs because those guys that all got that call. Well, guess what? They were ready because even though they were training for a smaller stage fight on the bottom of the undercard, well, they were able to take the chance because they were ready for anything, So. But tell me that one again because I don't know that story. It was against Dillashaw, you said?
Yeah. So basically, it was supposed to be Renan Barao, who was the and Renan Barao had lost the title, right? I believe it was the UFC bantamweight, 135, pound championship. He had lost it to Dillashaw, right? And then they were supposed to have a rematch. I believe that's the case, right? They were supposed to fight again, and then Barao essentially comes in overweight. Like he came 145 to
Oh, he was the overweight one.
125
Sorry.
pounds.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah. So he came in like 5 to 10 pounds over. So they're like, screw it. We could either cancel like the card or just plug this kid from the like literally the dark main event. I mean the prelims, right? The non-televised prelims. Pluck him up, give this kid a shine, and TJ was game for it, whatever, and it wasn't bad. Like he went like 3 rounds with the champion.
What was the aftermath? Did this guy get bigger fights as a result after?
Yeah, I mean that definitely. I mean, he got maybe 1 or 2 more fights that one would argue, did he deserve? Or I mean, deserving is such a weird one to say, but he did get some like a couple of profile, high profile fights. He was in like the one of the early incarnation of Eddie Bravo's like combat jiu-jitsu, or yeah, like a submission only. So he was getting not only like the UFC money, but he was also doing like grappling tournaments for like real money. So yeah, I mean, and he was that guy. He was like that almost like Chuck Werfner, right? Of yeah, for the scene. Like maybe he wasn't
real
the
rock.
best, but he was going to give you a hell of a fight.
Yeah. Well, that's a cool story, and I'm glad to hear you talked about how it led to more opportunities, because sometimes on these one-off fights, you don't necessarily make your money until the aftermath of it. I think there's like I think I heard like a saying, like even when you like win the world championship, you don't really make your money until your first defense. Your first title defense, just because first of all the purse probably wasn't as big, but all the adjacent money opportunities, all the deals that come after, don't happen until you've defended the title, right? So, I mean, people think that like these guys, take home all the money. They're giving away 33% of it right away, But I'm not giving you any firsthand experience. These are rich fighter problems. I'm just talking about what I've read.
Yeah. Now, I mean, since we're kind of thinking out of the box, right? Do you have anybody past or present that you'd like to fight? Just like dream scenario, because just putting it in the like the atmosphere. Who would it be and why?
Probably that fool that beat me. To be honest with you, why not? If I'm going to give you as realistic of an answer, that's probably who it is.
I think that's great. Being able to run it back. Like.
I mean, makes sense to me. I've never been asked that question, but yeah, I guess that dude. Why not?
I like it. Now, here's the crazy thing. So my dad was born in Mishawaka, Indiana, and
no way,
raised,
dude.
yes, and raised in South Bend.
Okay, yeah, you went to school in South Bend, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I spent
my
a lot of
dad
time
grew up in South Bend. My grandma lived there off of Albany Street.
I don't necessarily know the street, but I mean, I know some of the bars in Mishawaka for sure. I played in a punk band in college, and we played our first and several shows after, throughout our time at a little pub, not even a pub, I wouldn't even call it a pub, a little dive bar that was a venue in the back, called Wander Inn, INN, like an inn, but it was like Wander Inn, in Mishawaka. Played at a place called Smith's, I think, a bar in Mishawaka, and yeah, for sure I know in Mishawaka.
That's
That's cool, dude.
weird. Well, the family migrated north, and they like lived in South Bend. Like there was a time in my life that I lived at my grandma's house in South Bend. So I want to talk to you. Talk to me about your time at Notre Dame. You know, being a fighting Irishman.
Okay.
Like that's
So I grew up a Notre Dame fan. Um, as you heard my name, I have an Irish name. As a lot of kids across the country who come from Irish families are force-fed Notre Dame football games on Saturday mornings. Um, that was my family's experience for several generations, I suppose. You could say. My dad went there and was a big Notre Dame fan. And as a kid, I watched every single game. And I wasn't a very good student as a little kid, but started getting really serious about school like in like 6th grade. I started really trying to get on the honor roll, and I never did until the very last quarter. And I remember my two best friends at the time were Sean McKenna and William Shop. And I remember we were at the this is way too long of a story, but I don't know why it popped in my head right now. I just remember them busting my chops when we were, I finally got on roll. They called my name, and I didn't tell them I got it because they had both already gotten. We were kind of similar as students, but they had already made the honor roll, and I had never made it. And they saw me bust my balls, and it's funny to make fun of me for falling short on that. And I just remember them, and then William looks at Sean going, "How the hell did Garrity make it?" And he said something like, "Oh, God must have given him one wish," and he finally made honor roll. I don't know, dude. I don't know why that came to my head right now. But okay, so it was like I remember, dude. You remember the movie Rudy?
yes.
Okay, so obviously I saw that movie every time I was sick and stayed home to watch. Like you stay home as a kid and you're sick, and like you get to watch movies or whatever.
Yeah.
Well, we didn't have like a lot of movies. We had like maybe 10 movies, right? So that was one I watched every single time, and I swear I saw those as a little kid where you don't have a lot of like inputs yet, and like you see movie scenes play in your like your thoughts before you fall asleep at night. I remember
Yeah.
like the when I got like a bad grade on my spelling test. I remember like scenes from Rudy flashing in my head of like where he's like trying to gain admission and he keeps failing and trying again. I remember like talking to myself like 1st grade, like Garrity, you really got like in my own head, like, Garrity, you really got to start studying and get better at school because you're never going to get into Notre Dame if you don't do this. Well, anyway, it took me a long time anyway. So then by middle school, I guess I was a student finally. Like by 8th grade, I was finally acting like a student. And then in high school, I was just a very studious kid. Played rugby in high school. I was doing boxing, but still then. But Notre Dame was like my reach school and my like my dream school, and so like got into Notre Dame. Actually, dude, I forgot. This is actually more relevant to the story of this interview. It was like a big deal at the time. I don't know why I hadn't thought of it until right now. When I was in high school, and this was completely audacious dream from a little kid, and like I'm way off base with like my sort of assessment of my abilities at the time. But I still really wanted to be an Olympic boxer, and I took a gap year after. So I was a senior in high school, and I applied to colleges, right? And I even got into my dream school, and I sent them a letter asking for a deferment, if I could defer for a year, because I like wanted to continue training. I was at a really good gym, which finally got. It was Eddie Heredia Boxing Club in East LA, which actually was the first gym I really learned how to fight. Actually, because up until that point, I was just bouncing around a lot of gyms. I never really had a trainer. I was just that white kid that keeps on showing up and like getting his ass kicked. But I was just addicted, so I just kept doing it. And Eddie Heredia Boxing Gym with that group of guys, those coaches, that was the first time I actually like learned how to fight and like had some success. So I was like, heck, I'm gonna keep going with this, and I asked for a deferment. They said yes. You're gonna have to give us a letter in October, or it's due November 1st. So I went through this whole journey in my gap year where the reason why I took the gap year was because I was training in East LA I grew up in San Pedro, so it's like, 25 miles south?
Yeah.
But I was going to school in downtown LA, which is why I was able to go a little bit east to the gym before coming home. It worked out. And you know who? Reason why I thought about that gym is because Sean Estrada, who made it to the 2008 Olympians, who I'm buddies with now because of this gym, and he was on my show. And we were friends or whatever. He's just a funny guy. Sean Estrada, I remember watching the 2008 Olympics, and he was the only guy I knew from Los Angeles there. Well, there was the Molina brothers were in that Olympics too, but I knew that Sean went to Eddie Heredia's boxing gym, and since I had been to Eddie Heredia's once for a show, I knew where to find it. So anyway, that's how I ended up at that gym. And what I was going with the story was that I took the gap year, but I was so stubborn about if I was out of high school and I was supposed to be in college, if I was going to take this gap year, I wasn't going to live at home. So I rented an apartment over there, and I was like so stubborn. My like just feeling like a kid who had everything in the world, feeling like he needed to finally prove something. This is kind of the scenario of where I was at the time. My parents were paying for their health insurance, right?
No, I don't mean like one pickup. I mean like your boy.
But then I was doing rent and food and stuff, and so I got a job as a car salesman over there in Monterey Park, and that was a hell of an experience. Learned a lot down there. And then I had to send a letter. Oh, the whole thing was a disaster. There's plenty of hiccups along the way during this whole gap year, but like, don't regret it because the amount of things I learned and the way that even misfortunes are beneficial. I remember I had to send this letter in to update them on what I was doing during my gap year, and my dumbass, it was like almost Halloween weekend, right? And it's due November 1st, and I forget to do it until the last minute. So I had to pay a courier service of $300 to deliver this letter. I think it was a guy just getting on a plane and taking it there. Like, I have no idea. So yeah. Anyways, yeah. So that was a funny story about that process. But how was my time in Notre Dame? I loved it. It was a wonderful experience. I mean, it was a place I grew up wanting to go and had a great time. Met a lot of great friends and great experiences. Yeah.
Well, I mean,
too. I was in a band with guys from Mishawaka and South Bend, so we mixed it up in the South Bend punk scene.
I mean, there it is, and Tyson Duckworth, literally the featherweight champion for Alaska Fighting Championship, says, "Yep, business in the front, party in the back, 100%." Shout out to Tyson. Now, obviously, dude, I mean, there's been a lot of people that have helped you along your way, not just in fight, but in life. So I want you to get some shout outs out of the way, my man.
Yeah, I mean, my parents, my teachers, grandparents, my friends. If I could make a shout out, I have a couple of friends I made at the University of Notre Dame, who we were in the boxing club together. Chris Cugliari and Scott Rousseau are also involved in boxing. They continue to train and train boxers, and they started this nonprofit. Basically, what's going on, and you've noticed this. What's going on is that boxing as a fitness brand has really exploded, and so in these yuppie neighborhoods, upper middle class and ritzy downtown neighborhoods, you're seeing these really expensive boxing gyms pop up. And Chris kind of came to the idea like, hey, this is great that people are getting some interest in boxing, but like while there's all this money being made in this new segment of the fitness industry under the name of boxing, under the guise of boxing, meanwhile we have all these gyms that are keeping kids out the street and keeping kids out of gangs that actually could use a lot of help right now. So the mission of the organization, I'm wearing the shirt right now. It's called Gloves Not Guns. The premise of the organization is that we're using the folks from various fundraisers. We're raising money for equipment for boxing gyms in the ghetto. But we're trying to get kids like me that went to these preppy colleges who are going to these classes or whatever at Soul Cycle boxing version of that to get involved. So eventually we're doing fundraisers at these clubs and sending the money, but eventually we want to get people, out and help coach and things, but that'll kind of happen after things change with the pandemic and whatnot. But yeah.
I think it's great, and especially to give back, right? And that's one thing that more now so than ever, the ability to give back, right? And it's when people think about like less fortunate and everything, those are the things that come into mind. But theoretically, especially this year, everybody has suffered to one extent to another, right? You were talking about anxiety and kind of mental strife, and I don't know anybody, rich, poor, or indifferent, that hasn't had some sort of like damn near mental breakdown. I mean, you would be insane not to have some kind of like sense of doubt or fear creep into your psyche, So the fact that you guys are doing this for, again, kids that might not have been exposed to boxing because, hey, they might have a gym by their house or whatever, but they can't afford to, So the fact that you're taking people who might not be able to, basically grasp the sweet science, you're giving them away.
We're trying to Robin Hood the scenario where we see all these Richie gyms in Santa Monica make all this money from the sport of boxing.
Yeah,
boxing light. We're trying to help get these people interested in the areas where boxing is like saving lives. Changing the trajectory of these kids' lives. And I mean, I've seen it. I've seen it so many times. Flavio will tell you about it on the episode of his podcast. Basically, what Flavio can attest to is that boxing is that answer to keep kids away from gangs. So, and this isn't some like new revelation. Like this is the boxing story as old as time. You know what I mean? I'm the outlier. I'm the random guy that does this because he found a book in a book fair. Like. But most stories of boxing are come from the necessity. But everyone knows this. I'm not revealing anything. And I mean, but that's the beautiful thing that boxing has to offer is, this positive thing to keep people doing the right thing.
Yep, and it's a community. It's a community that you can, kind of get around, right? Which our friend, our brother. Fernando Lipe says, Garrity, what's up, my brother? Hope you're doing well.
What's up,
Shout
man?
out to Fernando.
Yeah, Fernando's doing a lot of cool stuff right now. I know he's promoting a lot. I've been seeing a lot of wrestling shows he's promoting. So good, man. Keep it up, dude. Good to see you, man.
Just saying, everybody's got to do something. I was actually at that Roy Engelbright Lucha Libre show that Fernando. Well, I think Fernando has a friend. I don't think he was involved with it. He was kind of involved with it, but his friend, like his favorite luchador, El Mercurio, he was definitely booking the matches. So shout out to Mercurio wherever you may be. But I'm pretty sure that Fernando Lipe was a fan of whatever you did that night. So thank you, good sir. Yeah, just saying. But dude, for those who haven't already followed you on social media, where can they find Garrity McOsker on social media?
Okay, so it's just Garrity McOsker right there is my name. I believe the name's gonna show up on the recording. It's just that on Instagram. Obviously, no face on that.
Oh wait.
And then I'm on Twitter. My name is Vulgarity, like vulgarity, but it's just VOL Garrity. That's it.
Yep, I followed him. You guys should too. My goodness. And Fernando says, "Thank you guys." No, thank you for being a good brother. But I mean, thank you guys for all joining us here at According to Woods. And Garrity, first and foremost, we wouldn't have a podcast today if not for you. So thank you for jumping in on it.
Yeah, man. Thanks for hitting me up. It was fun to chat with you. And I hope next time we're chatting on the ringside of a CXF show or a bash boxing show where we met. So shout out to those guys, to George and Steve and all that cool stuff. So hope we do that again soon too.
Damn right. I'm ready for it. You are too. Obviously, for everything goes safely, but once safety is here, let's get back to some semblance of regularity. But we hope you guys are good where you are, and if you guys haven't already done so, I warmly encourage you to subscribe to According to Woods on both Facebook and YouTube. Garrity, I mean, you're subscribed, right?
Yeah, According to Woods is a great follow. Not just for podcast content, but for the Jake Paul and Nate Robinson, was that his name? Nate Robinson memes. He was on fire. If you like that kind of humor, that sort of sports wrestling, fight sports wrestling kind of humor, meme game strong, Adam's got it.
Thank you, good sir. Thank you. And Fernando says, Wolfpack too sweet. I'm going to too sweet you right there, my brother. Bam. And there you go. But, I mean, be like Garrity. Don't just take my word for it. Be like Garrity and subscribe to According to Woods. And if you don't take my word for it or Garrity's, well, here's pro wrestler Zeta Zhang.
Hey, this is Zeta Zhang. Make sure you